Everyone in town stopped what they were doing when the stagecoach arrived. Not because someone famous had come, but because a young mother stepped down holding the hand of one little child, while two more followed close behind. She carried one worn suitcase, 3 frightened children, and the weight of an uncertain future. Some people whispered that no cowboy would ever choose a woman with 3 children. One man heard those whispers. Then he quietly smiled and said words no one expected. "There's room for all of you." What happened after that simple sentence changed not only 4 lives, but an entire town's understanding of what family truly means. Stay until the end, because this unforgettable Old West story proves that love doesn't count what someone brings. It simply makes room. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more emotional Wild West stories filled with hope, kindness, and second chances. The dusty stagecoach rolled slowly into the quiet frontier town, just as the afternoon sun dipped toward the western mountains. Wooden storefronts lined the main street. Hitching posts stood beside wagons. Ranchers and merchants paused their work as the coach came to a stop. The driver opened the door. A young woman carefully stepped down. Her name was Mary Collins. She looked tired from weeks of travel, but her posture remained steady. In one hand, she carried a worn leather suitcase. With the other, she held the tiny hand of her youngest child. 2 more children climbed down behind her, staying close as if afraid the world might separate them. The oldest boy tried to look brave. The little girl clutched a rag doll. The youngest barely understood where they were. They had nothing except each other. Across the street stood Daniel Harper, a hard-working cowboy known throughout the valley for his honesty and quiet nature. He had come to town to buy supplies for his ranch. Instead, he found himself watching the small family. He noticed something others overlooked. Mary smiled at her children, even though she looked exhausted. She made sure each child climbed safely from the coach before thinking about herself. That told him everything. Several townspeople whispered nearby, 3 children, no man's going to take on that responsibility. Poor woman. Mary heard every word. She lowered her eyes but continued walking with quiet dignity. She refused to let her children see her pain. Daniel watched silently. He knew loneliness. He knew hardship. And he knew courage when he saw it. Later that afternoon, he found Mary sitting on a bench outside the general store, while the children shared a single piece of bread. Daniel walked over and tipped his hat. "Mum." Mary looked up cautiously. "Good afternoon. You new in town?" She nodded. "I'm hoping to find work." Daniel glanced toward the children. "And them?" "They're my whole world." There wasn't hesitation in her voice, only love. Daniel smiled warmly. "I can see that." Mary admitted she had nowhere to stay after nightfall. She tried to sound calm, but worry filled her eyes. Daniel looked at the 3 children, then at the empty road stretching toward his ranch. He had spent years living alone in a house built for more than one person. Finally, he spoke. "If you're willing." Mary waited. "There's room for all of you." She stared at him in disbelief. "You don't even know us." Daniel nodded. "No." He smiled gently. "But I know what kindness costs." The oldest boy squeezed his mother's hand. The little girl smiled for the first time all day, and as the stagecoach rolled away into the distance, none of them realized they had just left behind their old lives. Ahead waited something none of them expected. Not just shelter, not just safety, a place to finally belong. Daniel welcomed Mary and her 3 children to his ranch on the edge of town. The house was simple but warm, with a sturdy porch, a red barn, and open fields stretching toward the distant mountains. At first, the children were shy. They stayed close to their mother, unsure if this new place was truly safe. Daniel never rushed them. Instead, he built a small wooden swing for the youngest, showed the oldest boy how to feed the horses, and let the little girl gather fresh eggs from the chicken coop. Slowly, laughter replaced silence. For the first time in months, the children slept peacefully. Mary noticed every small act of kindness. Daniel never expected praise. He simply treated them as though they already belonged. One evening, while watching the sunset from the porch, Mary quietly asked, "Why are you helping us?" Daniel smiled. "When I was a boy, someone gave my family a second chance. He looked toward the children playing in the yard. I promised myself I'd do the same if I ever had the opportunity. Mary's eyes filled with tears. She realized this wasn't charity. It was compassion. As the days passed, she helped cook meals, cared for the garden, and brought warmth back into the quiet ranch house. Daniel had opened his home. Without realizing it, Mary and the children had filled it with life. And deep inside, both of them began to wonder if this unexpected journey was leading them toward something even greater than a fresh start. As autumn arrived, the ranch no longer felt quiet. The children's laughter echoed across the fields. Horses greeted them each morning, and the once lonely house became filled with warmth. Daniel had grown close to each child. He taught the oldest boy how to mend fences, helped the little girl learn to ride a gentle horse, and carried the youngest on his shoulders through the pasture. To the children, he was no longer just the cowboy. He was someone they trusted. One evening, Mary watched from the porch as Daniel laughed with the children around a small campfire. "You've given them something I couldn't," she said softly. Daniel looked at her. "What is that?" She smiled through happy tears, the feeling that they finally have a father to look up to. Daniel was silent for a moment. Then he gently replied, "They gave me something too." Mary tilted her head. "A family." Her eyes filled with emotion. She had come to town carrying 3 little hearts, afraid no one would accept them. Instead, she had found a man whose heart was big enough for all 4 of them. And in that quiet moment beneath the stars, both of them knew their lives would never be the same again. Winter came, but the ranch had never felt warmer. The children filled the house with laughter. Mary brought comfort and love to every room, and Daniel no longer came home to silence. One snowy evening, they gathered around the fireplace after supper. The youngest child climbed into Daniel's lap and asked with innocent eyes, "Will you always stay with us?" Daniel looked at Mary. She smiled softly, waiting for his answer. He wrapped an arm around the little boy and said, "As long as you'll have me." The children cheered, and Mary quietly wiped away tears of joy. Months later, the town gathered once again. This time there were no whispers of doubt. Instead, neighbors smiled as they watched Daniel, Mary, and the 3 children standing together outside the small frontier church. The cowboy who had once lived alone now stood surrounded by the family he never expected. As they walked home together, the oldest boy reached for Daniel's hand. Without hesitation, Daniel held it tightly. Years later, people still remembered the words that changed everything. When others saw a burden, Daniel saw a blessing. When others counted the children, he counted the chance to love them. And with one simple sentence, he gave 4 lonely hearts a place to belong. There's room for all of you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that family is built by love, not by blood. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is simply letting them know, "Whoa, there's room for all of you."